This is the Sideline Slice, presented by Valentino's Pizza, the official pizza of the Huskers. Here's your host, Jessica Coody, and Husker Radio Network analyst, Jeremiah Searles.
Welcome into the Sideline Slice. I'm Jessica Coody, and no Jeremiah Searles this week. He's on his big hunting trip, so we've got a special guest filling in for us on this week's episode. Tommy Armstrong, no stranger to the studio, though, so thank you so much for filling in for us this week.
Thanks for having me.
You're a perfect guest because there's a lot of talk about the quarterback play. Yep. So we love talking about Dylan Raiola and the job that he's done so far. So let's start there. What's been your perspective of the job that he's been able to do managing this offense as a true freshman?
I think he's doing incredible. He's taking care of the ball. I know a lot of people see the 2 picks that he's thrown this year, but in my opinion, those 2 picks were taken away from the receiver, not in his control. So I think the biggest thing for him is just taking care of the football, managing the game, and putting the offense in the right situation to win games. And I think the last 4 weeks he's done that. And he's done a great job of just being that leader that he is. Just by being a freshman, it just shows how mature he is and how he's able to do things.
Yeah, that's one of the points I did want to hit on with you is just the wide receivers, because when I was on the sideline, I saw Coach Roll come over and he challenged them, and then Isaiah Nair after the game was like, I got to be more physical. So as a quarterback, I mean, you have that trust, right, in your wide receivers to go make that play, and then I think they probably put a lot of it on themselves. So how does that go, that relationship? Hey, I trust you to catch the ball, and then, those guys saying, I got to go make the play.
Yeah, it's important. It's really important. The receiver-quarterback chemistry has to be one. Me, myself, having Jordan Westerkamp is one of my guys that I threw probably 1,000 passes to a week. I knew in key situations in the game that was the guy I can lean on. Versus Oregon in 2016, 4th and 9, I knew exactly who I wanted to go to. But those are the things that boost confidence in your quarterback and also your receivers. And it just lets you know, no matter what, in certain situations we have to make plays. And I think this past week we had great opportunities. I think we left 17 points on the board, and it's a tough pill to swallow for those guys, but they have to make those key plays to win those big games.
Overall, Coach Rule said too, hey, the offense just didn't have the ball enough. But did you feel like you like what you saw out of the way that the offense was clicking when they did have the ball? They had some pretty good drives going last week. Yeah,
they had some great drives. Like I said before, they had 17 points they left on the field. I think the 3 key major mistakes that we made as an offense was one was the field goal we missed. The second one was the interception in the end zone. And then we Dylan missed a wide open receiver, on the post route in the middle of the field. And with a game like that, being at home, you have to be able to capitalize. You have to be able to make those big time plays in those situations to seal the game. But we had chances. Yeah, we're young, but at the same time, it's just, those are the key things that's going to get us over the hill and get us to win those games. And it's just, when you play a tough team like Illinois, that has to be a must for the offense. And I think defense got put in some bad situations here and there, but offensively got to play better. But overall, I think they had a great game. But like I said before, it only takes 1 or 2 mistakes to lose a game to a really talented team.
When you go into overtime like that, and you talk about, Coach Rule's talked about finding ways to win the games. Can you take us through that process of just figuring out how to win in those situations, and just when it clicks and then what you're supposed to do, how hard it is, I guess, maybe to work through, and for these guys just figuring out how to win, what's that process like, and knowing what to do in those certain situations so that you are making those plays that you're talking about to end up coming out on the other side of it?
Honestly, it's all about momentum. The biggest thing when it came to our offense and our defense last week was the fact that momentum shifted late in that game. Illinois went down, marched down the field, scored. We missed the field goal to actually take the lead, and we went to overtime, and they had all the momentum. They scored in 2 plays. First play, they popped it for a 23-yard gain. Next play action, throw it to the flats. Defense, they were already pinning their ears back. They were going to live and die by the blitz that last the last half of overtime, and they capitalized off of it. But momentum is a key of basically winning games. Definitely in a hostile environment like Nebraska, like you need the fans behind you, but going into that game knowing that, they're marching down the field, defense is kind of getting tired just because we're going 3 and out here and there. But the biggest thing is just trying to make sure that you go into overtime with confidence. I don't think we did this last week, and that was the key of it all. We took, I want to say it was 4 sacks in the last 2 drives of the game, and that was a killer for us. It was just more of, hey, let's try to establish some kind of confidence going into overtime, but we didn't. Defensively, it was a bend but break mentality, but that game they kind of got broken just because of the momentum that Illinois had. They went down, scored quick. We forced it to overtime, and then we missed the field goal, and they turned around and scored in 2 plays. Defense was basically all over the place. Offense, we just couldn't find any rhythm. The very first play, we take a false start, 5 yards back. Next play, we take a sack. Next thing you know, it's 2nd and 24. Then we take another sack, and it's 3rd and 32, 3rd and 34. Can't do that as an overtime game, playing a ranked opponent at home. You got to be able to find some positive things out of it, but I know they're learning from it. I would say this, Illinois, they were the better team that day. They came in and they did what they were supposed to do. Definitely being a away team, they came in and capitalized when they needed to, made key plays, but that's how you become one of the great teams in the conference, is you have to be able to win those tough road games.
And you talked about the defense and the bend don't break, and Coach Rule talked about them not getting off the field. And so when you're an offense sitting over there and you hope and you expect that the defense is not going to be in those situations often, but when it is those kind of long lulls where you're not out there, how are you going about keeping yourself ready, keeping your mind in it, and being ready to go whenever it is your time to run back out there? And because I got to imagine that's pretty challenging, sitting over there waiting to get back out there as an offense.
Yeah, it's tough. Definitely when you're looking at that clock, and you're like, okay, we have to make sure we get points if we get a chance, because ultimately, if you go out there and you get 3 and out, defense goes back out there and it's another 6-play drive for 5 minutes, or a 10-play drive for 9 minutes. Now you're thinking, okay, well, they're controlling the clock. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're keeping the offense off the field. They're keeping the crowd out of it. And that's the big thing. Like I said before, it's just you have to know who you're playing. You have to know what the situation is, but it's frustrating as an offense, definitely with so much talent that they have. That's how you get your defense ready to go. That's how you get your defense prepared. That's how you keep them with fresh legs. But when they have to go out there for 9, 10 plays and they actually get a stop or get a key situation, like, for instance, our defense got a strip sack, but we didn't get points out of it. That flipped the momentum. Those are the things that those guys think about when they're on the sideline. Like, okay, they got to stop. We got put in a bad situation, but we got a strip sack 2 plays later. Okay, now we have the momentum, but in the back of their head, they're probably like, man, can we at least get a little bit of break? But that's just every player. That's every team from all around the country. Like, they think the same way of, okay, at least give us 5, 6-play drive, maybe a little bit more, just at least 3-4 minutes of offense. Same thing with defense, because sometimes defense gets 3 and out, offense back out there. Then they score, defense gets 3 and out, offense back out there. Then it gets frustrating for the offense. So defensively, it's just more of just, I know it's frustrating because they capitalized on a lot of key moments of that game where they made some great catches, great runs, converted some 3rd downs that I personally thought that it was going to be tough for them to get, but that's part of the game. Offensively, finding the rhythm is hard when you're not out there a lot.
Yeah. Can you take us through just for Dylan and the being a young quarterback, and we've heard how well he prepares and he is just studies so much, but just what the progression is like with each game, how much you learn and how much you understand, and I guess just throughout a season, and now that you're going into week 5, just kind of what that process is like for a young quarterback.
Honestly, it's you're building a chemistry with everyone throughout the season. It doesn't happen overnight. In the off season, you throw to probably, I would say, 15 to 16 different receivers, and then that gets cut in half in fall camp, and then all of a sudden you're only throwing to 5 or 6 guys, or probably even 4 tops, depending on who gets hurt. But then you start seeing the chemistry with your running backs, understanding what type of things that they do well, they do wrong, as far as your O-line, what you can call, what they're comfortable with. For a young guy, I know he's understanding that now, the more he gets into the season, because when you're young, you don't really think about all the bits and pieces that has to come together for you to have a complete season. You're just out there enjoying being the quarterback, being the guy, being the guy that's the captain of the ship. But the older you get, you start to realize, like, okay, it's more to it than just being a quarterback. You have to be able to build these relationships throughout the season to where you make sure each group improves throughout the season, and then not only from the quarterback position. A lot of people, like, for instance, the receivers. Like you said, Coach Rule challenged the receivers, because at the end of the day, for Dylan, he believes in his receivers when it's one-on-one, when it's crunch time, when it's 3rd and 2, and it's easy to run the ball, but you got one-on-one out there with Banks, and you want to give him a shot. And those are the things that they have to understand as a receiver core is our guy, our quarterback trusts us, so let's make these plays. We're big receivers. Nair and all those guys are making plays, but let's do a little more. Let's pick it up. And throughout from week 1 to week 12, they have to understand that you have to get better each and every week. So I know right now they're probably saying, this is kind of a step back, but it's not. It's a learning curve for them that, they lost to a really talented Illinois team. Do I think they deserve to win it? I do, but they didn't. That's the reality of it. They have to get out there and improve on those things. They have to improve on the little small details. They're doing the big things right. They're going out there and they're treating everyone right. They're off the field. They're doing everything good. But now it's the small details. It's the high pointing the ball when you have to as a receiver. It's the keeping your hands inside with the O-line. It's the making sure you don't hit the quarterback late, making sure you don't hold as much. Those little small details is the difference between winning games and losing games. And as you see, when we played UNI, we had a bunch of holding calls late in the game. We had some touchdowns called back. Those are the little things in big games lose you games. So last week we played Illinois, and those came back to be costly. And I know this is a prime example for them, but it's just more of just the reality of you have to do all the small things right. You got to improve each week, and I'm not saying do everything correct all at once. You just have to get 1% better. And I know they say win the week, be 1-0 throughout the week. But the biggest thing for them is just improving on just the small details from each group. Everybody has a little bit of stuff that they have to improve on, from Dylan to, Dowdell to the O-line to Nair, all those guys that could actually improve on little small things that could be costly in big games.
You talked about the penalties, and I know a good chunk of them came on the defensive side of the ball, but and we're not going to blame the officials, and nobody in the program is either. They've got to make the plays. They got to go out and make the plays. But is there times where maybe certain crews call things differently? Like in basketball, you have to figure out the physicality of the game, how they're going to call it. Are they going to call it tight? Is that the same thing that is on the football field that you have to figure out and be able to manage? Because it seems like there were more penalties than normal. Is that something that you've got to adjust to in game?
Yeah, definitely on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's the most important thing. As a DB, you got to understand, are they going to let us play? Find out early. Be physical early into the game. See if you – and sometimes you may get a, illegal contact downfield. You may get a holding call on yourself or pass interference. But find out if those refs are going to actually let you play. That way later into the game, you don't say, man, you didn't call it all game. Now all of a sudden you want to call it now. But find out. See how physical you can be within that 5 to 10, that 5-yard radius from pre-snap to all the way down the field. Like, see what you can get away with at certain times, because it's a head game. It's basically you're playing chess out there. It's more of like, look, I need to hit him a little early, see what he does, try to knock him off his route. If I get called for early into the game, I know I can back off a little bit. Same thing with the O-line. Can I get away with kind of a little tug here and there, and see what I can get away with early into the game to see exactly how they're going to call this. And it's kind of cliche of saying it, but that's how all football is. You have to figure out what your refs are going to let you do and what they're not going to let you do. And you kind of figure it out early into the game where they're going to say, hey, look, hands off. And it lets those DBs and those safeties and linebackers know, hey, look, he's kind of being kind of tight on when it comes to making these calls. But late in the game, being a little bit more physical is kind of scary, but that's part of it.
Yeah, fascinating. That's a good take. So, what you had talked about just throwing the ball around to Dylan, and maybe that starts to dwindle down the guys that they call on in certain matchups. Last week, it was the big wide receivers that they thought that they had an advantage with. But as a quarterback, what is it like when you have the big tight ends that you can throw to? You got Carter Nelson, you've got all these different options, and I know you got your certain play calls and you're going through your progressions, but how are you going about deciphering, okay, man, I really like throwing the ball to this guy here? Or how does that work when you have so many different options on the field that you can get involved in the offense?
Honestly, with so much talent they have, the times where I had guys like DP, I've had Jordan Westerkamp, Brandon Riley, Alonzo Moore, Stanley Morgan, Kenny Bell. Like, when you have then Sethan Carter at tight end, those are times where you have to game plan. You have to see, okay, when we line up in this formation, what are we going to get? What's the matchups? What is this that we're going to actually get throughout this game? And having, like you said, Nair and Banks and those guys, they knew right away we had the height. We just had to make the plays, and they made plays. They made them for 3 quarters, I would say 3.5 quarters, because there was certain aspects of the game where they just didn't make enough plays. And when you play a good team, like I said before, you have to make those plays for 4 quarters and some. So with that being said, it's all about a game plan. I know Coach Rule and those guys, Dylan and them went out there and they knew right away they had the matchups that they wanted.
Yeah.
It was just more of executing. I think that we didn't execute as enough as an offense. Defense, like I said before, got put in quite a bit of bad situations, but some of them they got themselves out of. I know a lot of people are, talking about the defense, but I really feel like our defense is one of the top defenses in the Big Ten, and it's showing. Offensively, I think we got to just figure out a way to play all 4 quarters, make those big plays. The future is bright for them. It's just more of just understanding. You're coming from guys that's been losing since they've been a freshman, and now they're actually getting over that hill to where they're starting to get used to winning, but they haven't been in a key situation where it's, okay, we have a chance to win this game. And it's the first time they've actually had that here, where it's like, okay, well, we're 3-1, but let's continue to get better, learn from it. But overall, like I said before, it's all about game plan. It's all about knowing your matchups. And as a quarterback, I always tell my guys, and I was told when I was playing quarterback, you got 2 things, KYS and KYP. Know your personnel and know your situation. The biggest thing was they knew their personnel. They knew exactly who they wanted to go with. They knew exactly who they wanted to attack in certain formations. And they know their situation. They knew the situation was they were a really good run-stop defense. And in order for them to win the game, they was going to have to make the big plays out wide.
Yeah.
And I think that they had a great game plan. They just failed to execute in certain situations, and that was costly for the game. Before
we dive into Purdue a little bit more, I did want to ask you one more thing about the defense. You're not worried about the defense. I'm not worried about the defense. But they did talk about, the maybe some of the issues were discipline issues. They weren't as disciplined as they needed to be. So how do they go about attacking that and fixing that in practice in a week that it's not, the same issues that they're having with those discipline type situations, whether it's the penalties or the yards after contact, getting guys to the ground? How does that get addressed, and I guess in a hurry?
Honestly, it's something that on the defensive side, having a 3-3-5 defense where you actually have three down linemen, and you have an extra DB out there, and your three linebackers. It's more of just understanding if you're going to do that, you have to be a gap sound defense. You have to be able to make those tackles. You have to be able to hold each other accountable, because if one person is not gap sound, you get gashed for 10, 15 yards. And first play of the game in overtime, where it wasn't a gap sound defense, linebacker shot wrong gap, running back takes it for a 23-yard gain. That's not being a disciplined team. You've seen a certain formation the whole entire game, and you're thinking, okay, this is the run, and they run counter instead of power. And now you're stuck in a gap, which you shouldn't be in, because your DN is in that gap. I think that's where the discipline is coming into the picture, where a lot of people don't understand where when you're in a 3-3-5 defense, everybody has to be gap sound, because you don't have 4 D linemen. You have an outside linebacker that can basically blitz, or he's going to help with the pass game. And a lot of offenses see that, and they say, okay, let's see how our run game is when we have, 5 or 6 guys up front with a fullback, and let's see if we can gash them for a few yards. And that's why you have to be disciplined. You have to have that bend but don't break mentality, where you can get some stops here and there, and then all of a sudden you blitz a few guys and send some extra guys and get pressure on the quarterback. And I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to our defense, is just understanding that they have to be gap sound. They have to be able to trust each other, because the first couple of weeks, definitely, Colorado understanding that they throw the ball heavy, our defense was perfect for it. But when we play a team like Illinois that can run the ball, we're going to play an Iowa team that has probably one of the best running backs that's in the conference. They're going to run the ball, but we have to be gap sound, and it's still early. It's still some kinks here and there, but overall, I think they're in great shape. The only way that they can fix it in short notice, like you said before, is just being able to look at film, understand your gap, your responsibility, and just do your 111. That's all you can do. And if you're just getting, manhandled throughout that time and you're in your gap, that's a little different. But if you're not disciplined enough to stay in your gap and understand the reason behind it, then that's when you start to struggle.
Valentino's, treasured Italian family recipes passed down for generations. Valentino's has become Nebraska's classic Italian tradition and proudly served in Memorial Stadium for over 30 years.
Okay, let's break down Purdue, or talk a little bit about this matchup this weekend. First, road test. Did you like playing on the road? Were you a road fan?
I was at times. It all depends. I think the biggest thing is just, you have to be able to communicate. That's the biggest thing. Communication is a challenge when you're not at home.
So Purdue is a team that has had some struggles, but like you said, they're going to come ready to play, and having Nebraska come to their house. So, for this team now, their first chance on the road, for Dylan Raiola, first trip on the road, how do they go about approaching this and making sure that some of the things that they had last week that they want to get cleaned up gets cleaned up on the road?
Honestly, they have to take it a step at a time. Don't try to fix everything at once. I know it's a lot of stuff that they have to get better at, but get better at the major things. Just executing. Like I said before, this game came down to execution. I would be stressing every day at practice, winning your one-on-ones, doing your job, finishing through plays, wrapping up. Don't tell me you got the tackle. Don't tag off. I want you to wrap the guy up. I want you to do all the small things when it comes to executing the plays on defense and offense, because when you go out there to Purdue, they're going to throw a lot at you. They're a 1-2 team. They're learning as well, but now they get to play at home. They feel like they have the opportunity and the chance to win a game, and they're going to be hungry for it. And I remember we played, I want to say 2014 14, we played Purdue and at Purdue, and they threw so many different defensive coverages at me. Being a young guy, being a redshirt freshman, they threw 5 or 6 different fronts, 5 or 6 different blitzes, and I ended up with like 3 or 4 picks that game. We ended up winning, but it was just for me, it was just I was like a deer in the headlight. So seeing Dylan go for his first away game, he has to expect the unexpected. Like, he just has to understand, like, they may throw a lot at me. They may do this, do that. Headsets may be a little different now that you're at a away game. Maybe you have to look at the sideline now instead of just listening to the headset because it may be a little bit louder.
Yeah. What are you looking for out of the offense then? You talked about the flashes and then just maybe some execution errors. What does the offense need to do this week? And then we'll talk about the offense first, and then we'll flip things over to the defense.
Offensively, I think that we should. The biggest thing I'm looking for is just being able to finish drives. I think for the last 4 weeks, I've noticed a lot of starting off hot and then kind of, stalling out late into the game. This would be the first road test that they're going to have. So I would like for them to, I would look forward to them playing all 4 quarters the same way, starting off hot from the get-go, from first quarter and the third quarter, score both drives from the first and the third. That is the key of it all, is making sure you put points on the board, your first drive of the first half, first drive of the second half, and it sets the tone for your defense when you can do that. Because they understand, like, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. But offensively, just being able to execute from all sides, from every person on the field, from the O-line to the receivers, being able to establish the run. I know we have a room full of guys that can run that ball. Johnson can get out there and he can actually catch the ball out of the backfield, make a guy miss. Dowdell is great at what he does, and it's showing. But when you're able to establish the run game early, that opens up the pass game for guys like Nayer and guys like Banks that can do certain things. And I think going out there, they're going to have to be able to stick with each other because that's all they're going to have. We're going to have Nebraska fans travel, and they're gonna pack those stands. But at the same time, they have to understand, like, it's a road game. We always say it's us against everybody else when we walk into a hostile environment, and it's honestly Dylan's first true road test. And I think the biggest thing offensively is just being able to finish drives. I know they're going to make mistakes. Games aren't perfect, but it's how you respond. I think the biggest thing is learn from this week or this past week, and then take that next step of understanding that offensively they just have to do those small things to win this game.
I don't know about you, but I feel like we could very much see a defense that comes out with their hair on fire. I feel like this defense is going to be pretty fired up to get back out there. Yeah,
I think so. Having that, I guess, that sour taste in their mouth where they feel like they did enough but just not enough to win that game, it sucks. But defensively, I can tell you now they're probably practicing hard. They're chippy at practice. They're probably, letting the offense know certain things. Defense is just it lights a fire on them when they have to deal with certain things. And like, I'm guaranteed Coach Rule's doing the same thing for them. It's just, look, we get a stop here, we get a stop there, and it's a collective thing. Offense is probably the same way. We left 17 points on the field. Why did we leave 17 points on the field? We threw an interception, got ripped out of the hands. We missed a wide open guy. We didn't make a field goal, and we lost the game by 1 possession. We make even the field goal or that touchdown, the game's over with before it even gets to overtime. So all the possibilities for the defense of saying, we allowed this, we allowed that. Nobody realized that they had a slot receiver at fullback, knowing that he wouldn't probably lead block for a running back, and he leaks out for a touchdown. Those are the things they're probably learning. Those are the things that they're probably going into this week, and they're just they're itching to get back out on the field. And like I said before, defensively, I think I would say I think they needed it. They needed a game like this to understand that those small details is the difference between winning big games and losing big games.
It's so funny. You're an offensive guy, and you're saying, "Hey, offense didn't do enough," but the defense is saying the same thing. But I feel like that's kind of the mindset of this football team. That I talked to players after the game, and the offensive guys are, Nayer's like, "I should have made that catch," and the defense is like, "We let the offense down tonight." But that's kind of what a team is and what a good team is when they're taking accountability and holding each other accountable for the things that they did that maybe prevented them from winning that football game.
Yeah. For an offensive guy like myself, it could be, that situation with Nayer. If I would have gave you a better ball instead of having you instead of having you turn around, maybe if I would have just put it over your shoulder, it would have been a better situation for you. That's how a quarterback thinks. And then, for instance, if I would just put the ball on you instead of just floating the ball on the post, it would have been a touchdown. But that's how they think about it. And then Nayer's like, man, I should have just caught the ball, and I put you in a bad situation, but you didn't. That's how basically it happens. But processing that as a player, you're thinking about all the different situations. Defensively, oh, man, if we would have realized that the slot receiver was at fullback, maybe they wouldn't have got that touchdown. Or maybe that if I would have stayed gap sound on the very first play of overtime, they wouldn't have had a 23-yard game. We probably would have kept them to a field goal instead of this. Or if I wouldn't have took this sack, or if I wouldn't have fumbled. They all think about those certain things. That's why I say it's a collective thing, where when you watch film and you break things down, it's the simple things that cause you to let a big play or a small play turn into a big play. And personnel things, and like I said before, KYP, know your personnel. That's the biggest thing when it comes to defense. Personnel is the key. Knowing if they're in too tight, they have one running back in. If they have two running backs in, they have three running backs. Or even if they have two tight ends, two running backs, one receiver, it all depends. They have to know personnel based off of that, and that's the key of it all. And I think the biggest thing for them is just, as I said before, they have to understand where. I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but they have to know where they went wrong and how to fix it. And they don't have to fix it overnight. It's just how to execute better. Once you execute a little better, those little mistakes won't be as costly, because it's the simple fact of the matter is you're getting 1% better. I think that, like I said before, you and I going into Illinois, they really didn't see the big picture of where those mistakes were, but they saw now that those were costly.
Yeah. You talk about the personnel. Starting left tackle, Turner Corcoran is out. So you got probably Gunnar Gatula going to be making his first start. You feel like maybe some areas where you can utilize some of those blocking tight ends to help out a young tackle making his first start. How do you go about as an offense? It's next man up. I know that's the mentality, but the reality is that he hasn't played much football. He hasn't started much football. So are there ways that you can help out a young tackle in his first start and on the road at that with how you maybe scheme around with your personnel? Yeah,
like you just said, using the tight ends here and there, having that tight end on this side. Guys like Dowdell and things like that have to be able to chip before they go out. They do it a lot where it's just a little gut check where you get out wide, chip the D in, and understanding that getting the ball out quick, little jet sweeps here and there will slow that D in down. Having guys like Barney come across and get a jet sweep where that D-end just can't pin his ears back and just fly across the field. He has to respect that. And having some motions here and there where we motion the guy across and kind of chip him and then go out. Those are the little small things that I have a D-end. Instead of looking at the quarterback, as soon as the ball snaps, he has to peek his eyes to his left or right to make sure nobody else is going to hit him. Those are the things for a split second that'll slow a D-end down, that'll help guys that's making that first start at left tackle. So I think they're going to do a great job of just putting us in the right situation of protecting.
Do you remember your first loss? Did it fuel you?
I think my first loss,
See, it's good that you can't remember it. I feel like, for Dylan probably, and for some of these guys, they get to feel, hey, we're winning. Mm-hmm. This feels pretty good. Now this loss, I don't like this very much. You know what I mean?
Yep. I want to say my first loss was actually Minnesota at home.
Did it provide a little oomph for you?
Yeah. It was tough. It was tough. And it made me take a look in the mirror, like, okay, what could I have done better? Could I have done this better? Could I have done that better? And that was actually when I was actually a starter. I was rotating with Ron Kellogg the first year. And when I actually I was at helm, and I was just like, okay, now this is my time to be the guy. There's no plan B in case I'm playing bad. I have to play. And I sat back, and Westy came in the room, and I was watching film, and he was like, bro, let the game go. And I'm like, bro, I can't. I can't at all. Like, I'm just trying to figure out, why would I even make this mistake? What was I seeing? What was I doing? Like, what made me do this? But as a red shirt sophomore at the time, I'm like, I have to play better. But that's the biggest thing. If you can understand, like, and I was so hard on myself to where I didn't really understand, like, I can't fix everything in one day, but I was that type of person that thought I could. And I was overthinking so much stuff when it was just more of decision-making on certain plays. Like, why is it just 3-by-1 that I'm making mistakes, not 2-by-2? Like, what am I seeing different from this personnel to this personnel? I feel like my senior year, I got to a point to where I started understanding it a lot more. And I got a grasp of the offense, and I got a grasp of who was around me and the playmakers. Dealt with injuries here and there, but that's how you have to view it. You have to view it as, like I said before, taking it a step at a time. A lot of kids nowadays, they think that they can just fix everything overnight. It's not. You can't do that. You have to be able to just pick one thing. Pick one thing. From that game, pick one thing. Maybe for Dylan, it's giving my guys a better chance of catching the ball when I throw my deep ball, or just throwing the ball away when I feel pressure. Those are the things that he can fix one at a time. And maybe this game he does a little better at that, and it's a drastic change from being first and 15 or second and 15 to second and 30. Those are the things that help you as an offensive guy and as a quarterback.
Oh, great stuff. Okay, so I didn't prepare you for this, but we normally do this every week here on the Sideline Slice. What are your 3 biggest keys to getting a victory in this one for the Huskers going on the road at Purdue?
Okay, my 3 big ones are, I'd say it all the time, execution. Defense is getting turnovers. I think if we're able to get probably 1 or 2 turnovers, and then special teams. Special teams is the key. I know we're dealing with injuries with the kickers, but I feel like special teams has been kind of a downfall for us these last 4 weeks because we don't know. I really truly feel like we don't have an identity for that, but special teams matters. I feel like they call it special teams for a reason. Special people make special plays because they put them on special teams. So I think those are the 3 factors. If we're able to do that, I think we're able to win this game.
Okay, and then I always ask for a player to watch in the matchup, offense, defense.
Offensively, I would say Dowdell. I think he's a great runner. He runs hard. I think seeing how well he ran the ball last week, being able to be in a hostile environment like Purdue, we have to be able to establish the run early in this game to open up the pass game for our guys. Defensively, I would say Isaac Gifford. I think that he's the key of it all. In my personal opinion, he's the captain of that defense. 2 is everywhere. If he can manage to, get those guys lined up, communicate the right way, he understands how to play in big games. He understands how to get those guys lined up. But when they look to their left and to their right, usually they see number 2 right next to him. So if he's able to do what he needs to do, I think defense is going to respond the right way.
Tommy Armstrong, thank you so much for filling in for us. Great
No
stuff.
problem.
It was awesome. Have you enjoyed doing Big Red Reaction with Coody?
Yeah.
You getting the calls from Husker fans?
We've had a great time. I've enjoyed it. This is something new to me, but I'm enjoying it. It's a blessing to be able to experience all this, exchange knowledge about the game, and being able to just answer questions and just get feedback about everything. I'm enjoying it. It's just a blessing to be able to do it.
Well, we're glad to have you part of the team, and thanks again for stepping in this week. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Again, this has been the Sideline Slice presented by Valentino's Pizza, the official pizza of the Huskers. Thanks for listening and watching. Make sure you subscribe and like wherever you listen to never miss an episode right here on the Huskers Radio Network podcast.